Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Alien Covenant, starring Michael Fassbender, Katherine Waterston, Billy Crudup, and Danny McBride, and directed by Ridley Scott. Now before I get into this movie, I'm going to just tell you right now that before you listen to this video, or watch this video, I suggest you push stop because I'm going to spoil this thing like crazy, like at a point where you're not going to forgive me for that. So first see the movie and then go watch me after that. And I will also say that I saw this movie twice, and very glad I did, because the first time I was on the fence of whether I liked the movie or not. So for the first time I saw this in an IMAX theater, and the second time I saw it in a regular theater. Will I like this movie? Well, I'll explain it in the show. So let's get into it, shall we? I noticed the 20th Century Fox logo was green, but the other two studios were normal colored, whereas last time the logos were blue. Now the first scene is Michael Fassbender's David from the last movie, meaning his creator Peter Whalen, played briefly by Guy Pearce. Now I have quite a few questions. 1. How old is David at this point taking place in this movie? 2. What year is this taking place? And 3. How come Guy Pearce was in that horrible makeup last time, and this time he was not in that? This is a flashback to like, say, like what, 30 years ago or something like that? I like the credits roll of the movie on the screen, like when it presents the title of the movie, like it was the first Alien movie did. Like in Prometheus, it took place at Christmas time, except in 2104 is the year, 10 years after Prometheus. And the title of the ship, the name of the movie, Covenant, is what the name of that ship they're flying in. In some cases, grrrr. James Franco does have a pretty useless cameo as Katherine, I think, Waterston's girlfriend, because he dies and we see him on a video. And by dying, he gets burned by that superstorm. Well, not a superstorm, but something stops them and makes him burn himself. And he has a video for Waterston's character's Daniels to say, "Get your ass up here, we're having the best time of our lives and I can't make any promises," that kind of thing. Billy Crudup's character, from the moment I saw him in the movie, he feels like a jerk of a captain, because I'm actually kind of glad he gets killed off later in the movie by David, spoiler alert. But in this movie, he doesn't believe in luck. It just feels kind of dumb for the movie, I feel like. When I saw this movie the first time, I thought, is Walter an android? If yes, why is he drinking scotch? That's my problem throughout the movie. Well, wait till we get to the end. Isn't that bad for androids? Am I the only one who thinks Danny McBride is a one-note kind of an actor and I can't take him seriously? Especially when he's talking about tits. It made me pretty uncomfortable for this horror space movie. And when I saw this movie the second time, I thought, what he said in the movie in 30 minutes or less, if you remember that movie with Jesse Eisenberg, he says, "No one can hear you scream. That's from Aliens." It's like, why is he here in the first place if he's quoting that line from the poster of the original Alien? The planet they go to with mountains and where they're trying to go find a ghost is a beautiful location at the time, especially the daytime too. When we got to the scene with some guy, I forget his name, who's with Billy Crudup's wife, and there's ashes going into the nameless character's ear, and goes inside his ear, while later on we get a death scene by birthing a little white xenomorph from his back, which, ow, by the way, that was gross. And like, it looks like that could hurt like a son of a bitch. Like I said earlier in the movie, takes place 10 years ago after Prometheus. And I found that to be a good thing. I was cool with it at this point, you know what I mean? The gore in this movie was really graphic. And I was like, ew, with the nameless guy who I brought up earlier with Billy Crudup's wife gets slashed in the face after he gets cut in the back by giving birth to a baby white xenomorph. And again, very graphic. We see David appearing in present day with long hair, and he eventually gets the crew. While the crew gets ambushed, meets Walter, who's also played by Fassbender himself. Actually, first he has his hair long, kind of like what I kind of have, and he cuts it later on in the movie. A really confusing moment to tell me which one is David after he gets the same haircut as Walter later on in the film, because he gets a different kind of haircut, a little smoother than mine. I kept getting distracted by the two different characters Michael Fassbender plays in the movie. Like, which one is which? Like, is one David? Is one Walter? When David teaches Walter to play the flute, was actually a very touching moment for a space horror movie. I was very confused about the flashback, where David pouring some black ashes and kills off some people that looked like a lot like the engineers from Prometheus on that planet the crew are on in this movie. The returning couple of music from not just Alien, but Prometheus was a little too risky and pretty much unnecessary, you know what I mean? When David says that he loved Elizabeth Shaw, who we never see in the movie, but we see a photo of her, even if he killed her off, and we see this too, we don't see him doing it, we just see a picture of it. He killed her off-screen by ripping her jaw open. Ugh, that's disturbing. I felt like he lied about how much he loved Elizabeth because he felt kind of like a villain in Prometheus, whereas here, he was definitely a villain. He was so telegraphed to me, it wasn't funny to me. It was like this whole thing about David being a villain was too telegraphed. Katherine Waterston. Now, I've seen this actress in a couple of movies. The Steve Jobs remake with Michael Fassbender, as well as Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, which I'll get to if they ever make a sequel. But she is no Sigourney Weaver in this movie. She's kind of more like a sad version of Sigourney Weaver. No offense, Miss Waterston. When David tells Billy Crudup to come closer, it's perfectly safe, when it was like, here's eggs and there's face huggers in them, I was like, yeah, bullshit. Because, reminder, if you're in a room full of eggs with face huggers, don't get any closer, whatever you do. When the baby white alien xenomorph comes out of Billy Crudup's chest, and then he suddenly teaches it to put its hands up after he bursts out of Billy Crudup, was actually interesting in a strange kind of way, you know what I mean? It's like head scratching, like what I'm doing right now. When David kisses Walter and tries to kill off Walter, I was like, what tricks does he need to kill off Walter? Because he's like him, except maybe a little bit more nicer than David. Because gladly, they don't show how they do kill off Walter later in the film when he fights with David. When I first saw this movie, I'm going to get to that moment when they stopped with Michael Fassbender, aka Walter, looking up like this and about to punch David, another Michael Fassbender. I thought it would be David that would be on the ship the whole time. Like, for the last 20 minutes of the movie, it was like, it's David, it's David, it's David! And he says David is expired, and they call him Walter, and I thought David was on that ship the whole time. And when we got to the end, I was like, I knew it. It was coming for the last 20 minutes of the film. Not only was I right, but I wasn't that happy with it either. I was predicting for the last 20 minutes of the film, and there it was. The fight with the alien xenomorph on the ship was actually pretty cool. I enjoyed the moment. I also did like the final action scene with the humans versus the xenomorph. It reminded me of the end of the first Alien film when the xenomorph kills off 2 people in the shower. Not only was there graphic nudity, but it was a first for the Alien franchise to have nudity seen, but a little unnecessary. You know what I mean? This movie ended like the same way as Prometheus ended, where it was like, oh, we'll tell you again next time kind of bullshit. Now, time for the rating of the movie. I give this a 6.6 out of 10. It was definitely better than Prometheus, but there were still problems with this movie. Just go ahead, see it once, and never see it again. Never look back after that initial viewing. So once again, I want to thank you guys for joining me for this Alien retrospective. And until next time, game over, Scott. Game over.